So the other day I'm outside, kind of wasting time, minding my own business, enjoying the weather, and I noticed this city truck pulls up a couple blocks down the road. And as he gets closer, I realize what's happening is every house, guy gets out, digs a hole, gets back in the truck, drives to the next house, digs a hole, repeat all the way down the block. Didn't think anything of it. They're probably planting something or whatever, and go about my own business. A couple hours later, another truck comes up, and this time, as the guy gets closer, I'm really puzzled because he gets out of the truck, he fills the holes up, and he goes to each house filling the holes up that the guy just dug. So he gets to my house, and I'm like, dude, what are you guys doing? And he said, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, first guy comes out and he digs all these holes. Second guy, you come out and you fill up the holes. He's like, oh, we're planting trees. I'm like, but where's the trees? And they're like, oh, they laid off the tree guy 3 weeks ago. Hey kids, Adam here. Welcome to episode 5 in this series of remixing or mixing or doing something with stock plugins. What I'm doing in this series is I'm taking plugins that I usually use for my mixes, mostly Waves, some third party, and replacing them with Reaper stock plugins. I did want to do one shout out before we get into this. User Goggy's Threat on YouTube made a comment about the hum on my voice, and I've noticed that there's a weird hum that it was picking up. Turns out it was picking up the hum from my computer. So I have this mic on a stand. I'm going to try not to hit it. It's on a boom stand, and my computer is like basically directly below where it is. After much troubleshooting, I found out that removing these two washers from the mic stand itself fixed the problem. Dude, let me know if it's any better. I've been playing around with it all week, and I think it is, but let me know. I've also done some things with the audio to hopefully make it sound a little cleaner and a little crisper. So anyway, back to the video. Let's get into Reaper right away. There's a lot of things to go over in this video. Go over there now. All right, here I am, Reaper. You guys have seen this song a couple times. I had a video, and I'll put a card up here for it, for how to get a wall of background vocals. I use this song. This song has 41 vocal tracks. Now there's only 35 actual vocal tracks. There's 5 subfolders, and then there's the main vocal folder, but still that's a lot of tracks to deal with. I'm not going to go over every single track because there are a lot of duplicate things that I'm doing. I will go over probably one from each section. First, let's try to get this a little easier to manage. If we zoom in, if you right click on the mixer down here in the lower left corner, there's this option, clickable icon for folder tracks to show/hide children. And if you do that, it puts a little arrow, kind of like it does in the track control panel, and you can click that and collapse down all the folders. So I'm going to do that to all of these, and then you can start seeing the other tracks coming in for the vocal 2 tracks, and just get these a little bit easier to manage. Now we have things I can actually fit them on the same screen. Let's dive right in. I'm going to start with the leads, and what I'll do is I'll start on the track first, and then I'll kind of move up in folder level until I get to the parent. For starters here, let's go on the raise lead vocal. And what I did here is I'm using ReaTune for a couple manual tunings. I left ReaTune alone and I didn't do anything with that. So that's just a direct copy. For EQ, very simple. I did a high pass filter, 152. The low cut was kind of 314 area. And I did the same exact thing on the Reaper side, and then I did a high shelf at just about 6K, and I just copied and pasted the same numbers. EQ is pretty straightforward. For compression, I'm using both a combination of Rvox and the 1176, and what I'm doing there is I'm doing one to kind of smooth out and the other one to kind of get the peaks, because the 1176 is a much faster compressor. So on the Reaper side, I used ReaComp, and I kind of used just the setting I've been using throughout this series that kind of emulates like an SSL compressor, maybe 4:1 compression, 10 millisecond attack, 50 millisecond release, and a 1.5 dB knee size. And then the 1175, I kind of copied almost the same kind of settings. The attack is kind of up here. I kind of just made it, things look similar to what they're on, and was able to get a pretty decent setting there. I'm using the Wave Sibilance for de-essing, and there really isn't a Sibilance or de-esser plugin in Reaper. There is ReaXComp, which is a multi-band compressor. And there are two presets, one for a female DS, one for a male DS, and Ray has kind of a higher voice, so I actually use the female DS for this. And if I solo this, you can kind of hear what the DSer is doing.
You are so beautiful.
And there's this solo current band option, which a lot of DSers have. Over here on the Sibilance, it's the monitor button. You can hear what it's taking out then if I'm on band 2 here.
Are so beautiful.
It's not like a DSer where it's only taking the S's out, but it does work in a similar fashion. Then on the second lead, it's basically the same thing where it's just a doubled vocal. I'm doing the exact same plugins. Then we have the leads folder, and what I'm doing there on plugin wise is tape saturation with Kramer tape. Of course, what else would I do? And then I have a number of sends that I'm sending this to. Sending it to my Vox Air, and I will put a card up here to the Vox Air trick, my reverb, my slap delay, and the exciter. In the first video, the drum video, I'll put a link directly to that, even though the playlist link was in the beginning. I went over all of the sends that I use for drums, and that had both a short reverb and the exciter in it. I use a slap delay for guitars. So all of those plugins are covered elsewhere. Let's look at the Vox Air plugin here real quick. So on the wave side, I'm doing the Aphex Vintage Exciter. I sort of replicated that with the JS Exciter treble enhancer. It's not exactly the same. I think the treble enhancer works much more in a EQ fashion, and the wave side is much more of a harmonic enhancer. I use the Scheps 1073, and here I use the JS RBJ 1073 with the same exact settings. There is a Waves plugin called OneKnob Brighter. You turn it on and it makes things brighter. In the Reaper side, I just kind of guessed. I have a high pass filter at 100 Hertz just to get any kind of rumble out there. And then what I did is I just did a high shelf and messed around with it. I did a giant 12.8 dB boost at like almost 9K here, and the rest of the bands aren't even used. So those are the two. I kind of got it to sound similar. Next, I'm using an older plugin. This song I hadn't really fully tweaked out the Vox Air send yet. So I'm using an actual older version of this plugin called Ferric TDS. It's a free plugin. It's a saturation plugin, does a little bit of compression as well. It actually sounds really, really good. And I saturation on the Reaper side. I put it 100% to try to mimic what that was doing. And I use a 1176, which on the Reaper side I use 1175. Again, got kind of the same settings. So I'll solo out just the Vox Air track, and I'll go back and forth and you can hear which one's which.
You are so beautiful. Can't keep my eyes off of you. You are so wonderful. Don't know what I'm gonna do.
So they sound very similar. This is really, all it is the trick is just putting a whole bunch of highs on it and blending it into your tracks. So I was pretty happy with how this came out. So if you remember from the previous video, the slap delay is actually all Reaper plugins already. I'm using ReaDelay, ReaEQ, and this Pseudo-Stereo. So I don't need to go through that because I just kept the exact same plugins on there. And then the exciter, I'm using, in the previous two videos, I just copied the drum exciter. What I noticed is because I did that and the exciter track was all the way on the left in my project, it was putting it at the top of the list of sends. All I did is copy and pasted that exciter track over, and now it's showing up in the same exact spot that it would. So let's do some before and after of the lead vocal in the first verse here.
You are so beautiful. Can't keep my eyes off of you. You are so wonderful. Don't know what I'm gonna do.
There is a little bit of a volume difference here, and that's because of the reverb. In the real mix, I would probably just bump the volume up a little bit to compensate. The last part of the lead vocals is this end part here, which is kind of the back and forth. And I only want to look at one of these tracks. It is the no, no, no part. And here's the original.
No, 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 no.
What I've done is, along with the regular processing I did with EQ, I use Rvox. No need to double stack compressors on background vocals, really. Sibilance, and then I use the Abbey Saturator to add in some of that grit. So without the Saturator plugin, it kind of sounds like this.
No, 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 no.
And then adding it.
I can't.
So on the Reaper side, what I did is I used the EQ, I used compression, I used the ReaXComp for getting some of that sibilance out of there. I used JS saturation to dial a little bit of what the Abbey Road Saturator is doing on just the saturation side. And then I used the JS Waveshaping Distortion and dialed that in to get more of that grit and that actual distortion. And then because JS Waveshaping Distortion doesn't have a input and output gain, I added the JS volume adjustment, took 8 dB of gain off of that. Let's go back and forth on this track. I'm going to do the whole thing once, and then I'll stop it and do the whole thing again with the other plugins, just because there's some different sounds in there and I don't want to go back and forth.
No, 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 no. I can't. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I can't. No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
I'm really digging this wave shaping distortion. There's a lot you can do with it. You can simulate a number of different distortion and saturation plugins. Let's get to these vocoder vocal settings. There are 2 of them. The first one I'm going to go over. It's kind of cool. It has this like flange setting on it.
I want you to stay.
So for that, I did EQ, I did a high pass filter, and I put it pretty far up, like 343, to get all the bass out of it, because I don't want any like rumble or muddiness there. And then I did a bump at 589 just to kind of bring those out. I used Rvox for compression, and then I used this GTR Stomp with a flanger pedal. On the Reaper side, I did ReaEQ with the same settings. I did ReaComp with the kind of same compression I've been using through the whole thing. And then there's a JS flanger pedal, which I kind of just messed around with the settings just to get it to sound similar to what it did. So let's do a before and after of the Waves versus the Reaper.
I want you to stay. I want you to stay.
Little difference, but really, really close. And I was kind of happy with the way this came out. This JS flanger is another one that maybe people don't know about. You obviously can't just do the exact same settings as a pedal, even though I started with the same settings, but you just kind of have to play around with it to get the sound you want. The next vocals are this line right before the bridge, which is just I want you to stay, and it goes along with the vocoder.
I want you to stay.
If I bring up the settings on this, it started out just like a regular vocal. In fact, if I take this extra EQ off,
I want you to stay.
but we kind of didn't, I wanted something different in there. So I wanted the telephone vocal effect. I'll put a card up there for that. So I did my standard EQ, I did Kramer tape, and then I did this telephone vocal EQ. And all it is a high pass, a low pass, and a bump in the middle. So on the Reaper side, I was able to do the same things. I did the same EQ, I did JS saturation instead of the Kramer tape, and then I did the same EQ for the telephone vocals. So let's do before and after of those.
I want you to stay. I want you to stay.
And it's close. There's actually a little bit more like highs and mid presence in the Reaper side, which I think will actually stick out a little bit better. So I like the way this came out, and I left it there. Next, we have these stay breakaway vocals, which are featured in the Wall of Vocal video that I did. If I haven't put a card up there, it will go up here right now. For this, it was pretty straightforward. On each individual track, and I'll bring one up here, I did Rvox and I did Sibilance. And those compression and de-essing and things, for me, they work better on each individual track, especially since there are a lot of different things going on here. Ray did 3 or 4 different tracks on each harmony. Dylan did 3 or 4 on each harmony. So I wanted to just process those individually. And then on the Reaper side, I did the same thing where I did ReaComp with the same settings I've been using, and then ReaXComp, either female or male preset depending on the vocalist. If it was Ray, I did the female. If it was Dylan, I did the male. And then on the folder track itself, I just did my standard EQ, and then I added Kramer tape to it. And on the Reaper side, same thing, JS saturation for Kramer tape and the same EQ moves. So let's do before and after.
I want you to stay, yeah. want you to stay, yeah. Break away, yeah.
I'm not going to lie here, the Waves plugins, especially the reverb. In fact, I think it's probably 95% the reverb makes those sound much fuller and more dimensional. I think the reverb that I'm using on the Wave side is more, it has more depth to it, whereas Reverb 8 seems to be just, it doesn't seem to have, and it's not even just the reverb tail, it's just the dimension and the depth and the kind of the 3D organic sound to it. But they sound good, and I mean, they sound good in a mix. It was well recorded. It was, you know, kind of well EQ'd and things like that. I think it'll be fine. And then finally for the vocals, we have the chorus vocals, which are a more of the same on one of the channels I'm doing. I have ReaTune here for some tuning. I have Rvox for compression. I have Sibilance for de-essing. On the Reaper side, I have same ReaTune. I have ReaComp for compression. I have ReaXComp for de-essing. And then on the main folder track itself, I'm doing more of the same. I'm doing EQ and I'm doing JS saturation. And I did the same thing over here on the Reaper side. I did EQ, I did JS saturation. Let's do before and after of these.
Keep my eyes off you. No matter what I do, I can't. Keep my eyes off you. No matter what I do, I can't.
These sound quite different. One of the things is the reverb I'm using. I'll put a card up here for all my reverbs and delays and how I use them. I'm actually using the long reverb in this. I did not copy that over because I had so many problems with the short reverb. I figured there was no way I was going to be able to replicate the long. So I just used the short reverb and I put more of it on. There are a lot of things going on EQ wise, and I think the ReaXComp is taking out too much. But again, their background vocals, they will fit and they sound okay. And I think they'll be fine in a mix. If I was doing this from the ground up, I wouldn't have any concerns about it. It's only comparing them to the Waves where they seem to be much more different. All right, so that is it for the vocals for this series. I did go through all 41 tracks and set up the Reaper plugins. You hear some differences. I mean, absolutely there's some differences there, but I think they're very good. I think the Reaper ones need a slight boost in volume. I wanted to keep the faders the same because as soon as you start messing with faders, you might as well just remix the whole thing. But I think for now, I think that's a pretty good exercise. It shows you there's really not a lot going on as far as mixing vocals. It's the same as everything else. It's EQ, compression, saturation, some sibilance for de-essing, some tuning maybe here and there. I'm not heavy on tuning. I just tune a couple notes here and there, nothing major. So if you enjoyed this series, there's one more episode to come. That's where I'm going to go over some plugins on the master track, and I'm going to do a before and after throughout the whole mix where I just let the whole thing play and go back and forth. Join me for that one in the next episode. In the meantime, click like, leave me a comment, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell thingy, and until next time, have an awesome week. Spider invasion. This thing sucks. It has what plants crave. Hey kids, Adam here. Welcome to episode 5, 4, 6, 8. I have no idea. It's 5. Counting is hard.